Hi, happy Halloween. I'm Emily from CSM. I'm the lead 3D artist. I'm going to show you how I created this scene in Blender using our Halloween package. So the first thing I did was import all the meshes from our pack. We have a bunch of trees, some arches, we have some basic metal gates. There's some stones that you can use for pathways and things like that, and some single rocks. And we also have a little character. You can either go and rig him or you can keep him the same. So the first thing I did was use the metal gates and the arch that's provided in the pack to kind of map out how big I wanted the graveyard to be. You can add less gates, so you can do more arches. This is kind of the fun of the pack, is like you can make whatever scene you really want. I wanted a very simple graveyard, just a really basic one, but you can go crazy. So the next thing I did was I added some light poles. I kind of placed them to places where I think would be the most convenient to have any light shining from it, or if there's going to be like a bench or something next to it. I want a decent amount of light, but not a crazy amount. I did put some in the front of the gate as the walkway, but yeah. So I went ahead and added some of the dead trees to the scene. I didn't want to go crazy since there are only two. It would be easy to see the repeating dead trees, so I just added a couple to the scene. You can add as many as you want, or if you don't want to add any at all, that is completely fine. I resize them, rotate them a little bit, but yeah. So the next thing I did was went ahead and created some really simple, easy grass. You're going to grab a plane, and then you are going to go to the particle section, and you're going to create a new particle effect. You're going to name it grass, and then you're going to go to the hair part. And here you can adjust the height and the amount of hairs. I went ahead and did like 20,000. You can do more, you can do less. I just don't want my blender to break because we're going to use a lot of grass. We're going to scroll down here and we are going to change that one to whatever percentage. This is more so just like a randomizer. Make it more chaotic looking, rough looking, not freshly mowed. If you want a different look, be free to play around with the settings. But yeah, I adjusted the height, and that's about it. Just add a material on here, and you're good to go. I went ahead and placed these squares around any areas where maybe the camera might possibly see. I didn't want to go too crazy because, again, this might make your blender extremely slow. So don't do too much. Um, Keep it simple. Any far away places you'll see here in a bit, I use solid planes with no particle effect at all on it, just the same material. Um, in the camera you can't tell if it's grass or if it's just a flat plane, and that will make sure your blender does not explode on you. So I wasn't really happy with like a solid color, so I went into the material and just added a noise texture and combined two shaders. It just has a darker shade of green and a more lighter yellowish shade of green. The noise node is going to make it more sporadic and randomized. Here's the example. If you want to follow it, you can just pause it. So the next thing I did is I just went ahead and started populating the scene with some trees, trying to randomize it, different heights and things like that. Again, only put trees where your camera is going to mainly see. You don't want to see any of the ending points of your grass or things like that. Just make sure it looks good. Keep looking into the rendering section to make sure everything looks okay. So here you can see that I decided to add the big planes to kind of fill up the space where the camera is too far to see, so it doesn't break my blender. It's just a couple of flat planes, nothing crazy. It just has the same material as the grass, so in a camera's point of view, from that far away, you're not going to be able to tell if it's the particle effect or if it's just flat planes. So here I wanted some concrete or sidewalk in front of the graveyard. I didn't want it to just be like completely full of grass. It didn't feel realistic to me. So I went ahead and did a similar thing to what I did with the grass. I created a blank plane, created a new material, and created this different node for concrete. It's a super simple material for concrete. You can pause here and kind of follow what I did. Again, I mixed two shaders and did a noise pattern node and add some distortion. Super simple. You can pause and look at, kind of follow what I did. Nothing crazy. And when it was all done, I went ahead and added it to my scene. This material makes it easy where you can keep adding the planes next to each other, and they're not going to notice a very noticeable pattern, which is great. That's what we need. I added just in front of my graveyard. You can add it really wherever you want. You can even add it into your graveyard if you want some pavement. So the next thing that I did was I added some of these area lights. I placed them on each mesh where I thought would look the best. They're not perfect, but they give off the lighting in the scene the way I want them to. I just took the light and the mesh and duplicated them and replaced all the light poles that I added before and deleted those. Just keep going back and forth into the rendering, kind of get the vibe of what you're wanting in your graveyard. I wanted a semi-darker area, so you can change the intensity, the color, anything like that. I just did them a slightly warmer tone. I didn't want a very cool lighting to give it more of an ambiance. So the next thing I did was add a Skydome. You're going to add a UV sphere, and you're going to make sure it completely engulfs your scene. You can always cut off and make it just a half a sphere. But I like to do a full spear if I can, just so I don't see the weird cutoff in my camera or anything. Um, so I added this material. You can pause and look at everything I did. It's not crazy hard or difficult, it's very simple. There's also a bunch of tutorials on YouTube if you want to go and do a more in-depth or crazy sky. Um, they follow something very similar. Super simple material, not too crazy. But yeah, if you want to pause it and kind of look at what everything I did and maybe follow everything I did, you can get something very similar. The next thing I did was I wanted to add a stone pathway in my graveyard, so I kind of sized them up. The good thing about these is like you can reuse them and it's not going to match up, but I like to rotate them a bit every now and then to make sure that there's not a very obvious repeating pattern. Um, you can use a little snapping tool and it will make it much easier and faster to put these on your scene. It's just that magnetic button at the very top of your screen in the very center. You can see mine in my video. It's already highlighted blue, so it's activated. So I also added the smaller version of these um, as kind of off-way paths in the graveyard. I also rotated them so they wouldn't have a super noticeable path or pattern. I was thinking these would go in a match up to the benches in my graveyard. Again, you don't have to have these. I just think it adds the graveyard some character and a bit more realistic, in my opinion, than just like a solid flat plane of grass and gravestones. So the next thing is adding props. This is the fun part. You can go crazy, go wild. I just added some benches. I added flowers, pumpkins. I did the gravestones. You don't have to do nearly as many as I did. You can keep it small and simple, whatever makes sense. I extended some of the gate, and also at this stage you also want to start adding a bit more trees and things like that where you think is needed. But yeah, have fun. This is the fun part of making a scene. So one of the last parts that I like to do is set up the camera. You can do this beforehand, and honestly it might help you with what you need to add to the scene and what you don't, especially when adding the trees and stuff like that. Here I'm just setting the camera back to all zero. I don't like how it like automatically comes turn. I want to change it myself. And then I want the camera to move for an animation, so I'm going to add a path, and this path is going to be the path that we're going to edit, but the camera follows the path. I think it's a super easy and quick way to get your camera to animate alongside with your scene. So to attach the camera to the path, you're going to click on the camera, you're going to go to constraints, and then you're going to go to follow. And then you are going to select the path in the scene. And now your camera is completely attached to the path, and you can edit the path and change where you want the camera to go. So you have your camera and path set up the way you like. You make sure you have the timeline set up. It should be default on Blender, but if not, just in case, you can set it there. To animate, we're going to start at the point that we want it to start at, and you can change it in the offset section when you click the camera and you're in the constraint area. You're going to hit that little button next to it. That's going to be your keyframe, and then you're going to go to the very end of your animation, and you're going to take your camera to the very end of where you want it to stop. This is a quick way to animate it, super simple. Just go ahead and set it to where you like it, and then press the button once more. And you can check it by going back and forth in the timeline. And this is always editable, so don't worry if you want to make any changes later on. So this is a very optional step, but I wanted my character to be moving, so I exported the skeleton and then imported him into Mixamo. Mixamo automatically rigged my character, and I got this cool animation that I wanted in my scene. So once I'm back in Blender, I imported my FBX of what I downloaded, and I positioned my skeleton where my camera ends. I made sure that he wasn't floating above ground or floating through objects, and I scooted the animation to the very end to where it will match up to my animation. So I just kind of moved the timeline a bit longer so he matches up to when the camera comes in and he just slightly gets up. I think it's a cool little ad and makes my skeleton a bit more alive. Again, this is optional. Have fun with it. You can always keep him static, not moving, or you can have him do other things. Just have fun with it. So once I was happy with everything, I just double checked how it looked in render, and then I went to the render option and hit render animation. Make sure you have all the outputs set up correctly so it's turning itself into a video and it's exporting it to the correct file on your computer. It might take some time um, if it's a bit longer animation, but I also did take some rendered photos. You can do that using your camera as well. But yeah, I hope you like this video, and I can't wait to see what anybody makes with it. But yeah, happy Halloween. Thanks for watching.